The challenge announced. The stars never stayed quiet for long. And today, they roared with the most unbelievable news. A human has challenged the Zalkar champion to the grand combat. Across space stations, colony worlds, and alien cities, the announcement spread like wildfire. The Zalkar were known as warriors of legend. They were tall, strong, and had never lost a battle. Their champion, Ralphar, had crushed every opponent for the last 20 years. His name meant fear. Now, a human dared to challenge him, a species known for their weak bodies and soft skin. The galaxy laughed. It had to be a mistake. Humans were good for trade, for exploration, for curiosity, but never for combat. But the name of the challenger was clear: Captain Daniel Cross. In the control room of the Earth Space Command, Daniel stood still as the announcement played again. His face remained calm, though his heart raced. He was no fool. He had seen Ralphar fight. The alien warrior fought with power and speed beyond imagination. "Sir, the Council is asking for an explanation," Lieutenant Sarah Miles said beside him. Her voice trembled. "Why did you volunteer? The Zalkar have never been defeated." Daniel turned to her, his eyes steady. "Because someone had to," he said simply. "The galaxy thinks humans are weak. If we don't show our strength now, we'll always be seen as prey." Sarah bit her lip. "But why you? You're not a soldier." Daniel gave a small smile. "No, I'm a strategist. And sometimes brains win over muscle." Meanwhile, light years away, deep in the Zalkar War Hall, Ralphar stood before the holographic projection of Daniel Cross. The image of the human's calm expression floated in the air. Ralphar's lips curled into a sneer. His dark blue scales glistened under the torchlight. "A human," he growled. "This thing dares to challenge me." Beside him, General Krax clicked his claws together nervously. "Yes, champion. The humans have grown bold." Bold or foolish? Ralphar's deep voice shook the room. "Either way, I will break him." "But champion," Krax hesitated. "The humans, they're unpredictable." Ralphar slammed his fist into the wall, leaving a deep crack. "We are the Zalkar. We do not fear apes from a dirt world." Still, as he turned away, his eyes lingered on Daniel's image. Something about the human's calm expression unsettled him. There was no fear in those eyes, only patience. 3 days later, the galactic news channels were consumed by the event. Reporters called it the Battle of Madness. Alien commentators mocked humanity's foolishness. But on Earth, the mood was different. People gathered in streets, schools, and workplaces. The human spirit, stubborn and unyielding, flared like a torch. They knew the odds. But they also knew their history. David had once defeated Goliath. The impossible was just another challenge. In a quiet park in New York City, Daniel sat alone on a bench, staring at a small photograph in his hand. It was old and worn, a picture of his wife and daughter. His wife, Elena, had died 5 years ago in an alien attack. His daughter, Mia, was safe on Mars, watching from afar. He traced the picture with his thumb. "I promised I'd protect you," he whispered. A voice interrupted him, nervous. He looked up. Sarah stood there, holding 2 cups of coffee. He took one and gave a tired smile. More like, focused. "You're facing an alien who's crushed warriors twice your size. I'd be terrified." Daniel chuckled softly. "I am. But fear is like fire. Control it, and it keeps you sharp. Let it control you, and you burn." Sarah sat beside him. "What's the plan?" Daniel looked at the night sky. The stars seemed to twinkle with quiet secrets. "The Zalkar fight with strength, but strength can be turned against them. Ralphar expects me to fight like the others, with brute force. But I won't. I'll make him chase shadows. And if that doesn't work, then I make sure the galaxy remembers one thing," Daniel said, voice firm. "That humans don't break. We bend, we adapt, we survive." In the depths of the Zalkar warship, Ralfar sharpened his twin blades. The metal hissed with each stroke. He imagined the human's bones breaking under his fists. The battle was only days away, and the galaxy would witness the end of human pride. But as he worked, a strange unease crept through him. He had faced hundreds of enemies, many larger and stronger than Daniel Cross. Yet none of them had stepped into the ring with such quiet resolve. What was the human hiding? Ralfar shook off the thought. It did not matter. The arena would be filled with billions of watchers. Blood would stain the sands. And when it was over, the stars would remember this fight for one reason: the day a human dared to challenge a legend and lost. The preparation begins. The galaxy held its breath. Across countless worlds, beings of every species paused to follow the unfolding drama. The announcement of the grand combat had become more than news. It was a story whispered in market stalls, discussed in council chambers, and debated across digital forums. A human had challenged the Zalkar champion. For the first time in decades, the unstoppable Ralfar would step into the arena to defend his title. His opponent, Captain Daniel Cross of Earth, a species considered fragile and harmless. No one believed a human could win. Yet there was something about Daniel's calm stare during the official broadcast that unsettled even the most skeptical watchers. He didn't look like a man who accepted defeat. Daniel Cross stood alone in Earth's lunar training complex. The artificial gravity generators hummed softly as he paced across the reinforced floor. His muscles ached from days of intense training, but his mind refused to rest. He stopped beside the full-length mirror. The reflection staring back at him didn't seem like the same man who had signed up for this impossible fight 2 weeks ago. His face, once smooth and relaxed, was shadowed with exhaustion. His dark hair stuck to his forehead with sweat. And then there was the scar, a faint, glowing line running from his wrist to his elbow. The scar wasn't there a month ago. Daniel rubbed the mark. It pulsed beneath his skin like a heartbeat. Doctors had scanned it and found nothing unusual. Probably stress-related, they said. Daniel wasn't so sure. "Captain Cross," came a voice from the overhead speakers. "Your next training session begins in 5 minutes." He exhaled slowly. "Right. Let's get to it." In the observation room above, Sarah Miles watched Daniel with concern. She tapped her tablet, analyzing his biometric data. His heart rate stayed steady even during high-intensity combat simulations. His oxygen intake remained consistent, even when pushed beyond normal human limits. "How is this possible?" she whispered. "He's adapting," said Dr. Patel, the chief medical officer. She pointed at the scar on the screen. "See this? His neural pathways are changing. Faster reflexes, stronger muscle response. That scar isn't just cosmetic. It's connected to his nervous system." Sarah frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," Dr. Patel said carefully, "that Daniel is evolving. Humans shouldn't adapt this quickly. Something ancient is waking up inside him." Meanwhile, in the Zalkar warship Bloodfang, Ralfar meditated in his private chamber. The glow of crimson battle runes reflected off his scales. The chamber was filled with holographic recordings of past opponents, hulking warriors who had charged at him with brute strength. They had all fallen the same way, crushed under his relentless power. But the image before him now was different. It was Daniel Cross, ducking and weaving through holographic training drills with precision. The human moved with a strange grace, almost predicting each attack before it landed. Ralfar growled. "He's weak," he told himself. "Soft." Yet the unease remained. The Zalkar believed in strength, but Ralfar knew from experience that unpredictability was dangerous. Humans were new to the galactic stage, but their history spoke of stubbornness and clever strategies. Empires on Earth had once fallen because of smaller, underestimated forces. He clenched his fists. No matter. Strength conquers all. Behind him, General Krax entered with a bow. "Champion, we've intercepted human communications. Their scientists are concerned about Cross's new abilities. Ralfar's eyes narrowed. Abilities. Krax hesitated. Yes, his body is changing. Fast reflexes, improved muscle density. They say it may be something ancient. Ralfar stiffened. He turned to face the general. Ancient. Yes, champion. Ralfar's mind raced. The ancient Terran legends were dismissed as myths. Stories of humans once protected by an ancient power during their pre-spaceflight years. A power that had vanished long ago. Prepare the forbidden weapons, Ralfar ordered. If the old power returns, we'll crush it before it awakens fully. Back on the moon, Daniel stood in the combat simulator. The walls shifted, creating a realistic alien landscape filled with enemies. Drones hovered overhead, firing energy bolts. He ducked, rolled, and countered with swift, precise moves. His mind seemed to predict the next attacks with eerie accuracy. Suddenly, the scar on his arm flared with light. His vision shifted. The drones slowed. He could see the faint energy signatures of their weapons before they fired. This isn't normal. But instinct took over. Daniel moved through the maze like a ghost, dodging every shot. He felt something ancient whisper in his mind. Adapt. Survive. Overcome. The words were clear, as though spoken aloud. The simulation ended. Alarms blared, indicating a perfect score, something no one had ever achieved. Daniel fell to his knees, gasping. Sarah rushed into the chamber. Daniel, what happened? I saw the attacks before they happened, he said, clutching his glowing arm. It's like something inside me is waking up. Sarah's face paled. We need to tell command. No, Daniel said firmly. Ralfar can't know what we're becoming. Not yet. In the darkness of deep space, the alien council debated. The news of the humans' strange abilities had reached them. The humans are changing, hissed the Zyrith ambassador. If this spreads, their species could become dangerous. The Vornik senator's voice crackled. If Cross wins, humanity's reputation will rise. More humans might awaken. Then we cannot let him win, said the Zalkar representative. If necessary, we break the rules. We must stop the awakening. A silent agreement passed between them. The rules of the grand combat would be bent. The human would not leave the arena alive. The arena of fate. The galaxy never slept, but tonight it stood still. The grand combat was not just a fight. It was a test of strength, pride, and survival. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds tuned in to witness history. The challenge, a human against a Zalkar champion, had become the most anticipated event of the century. Across the universe, holographic projectors buzzed to life in crowded plazas and quiet homes. Eyes of every shape and color turned to the colossal arena on Caltharis Prime, a gas giant with gravity fields strong enough to make any battle brutally real. The arena itself was ancient, a vast, circular coliseum floating on an artificial platform above swirling storms. Its sands had seen countless warriors rise and fall. But never before had they witnessed a human step into the ring. The arrival. Daniel Cross stood inside the arena's preparation chamber, staring at the heavy metal doors before him. He could hear the crowd outside, an endless, vibrating hum of excitement and disbelief. His heart pounded in his chest. His body felt heavier than usual. The gravity fields were already active, pressing down like an invisible weight. The scar on his arm pulsed softly beneath his combat suit. Each pulse came with a whisper in his mind. Adapt. Endure. Triumph. He ran a gloved hand along the scar, feeling the faint warmth of something ancient and unknown. The door hissed open. Bright light flooded the chamber, and Daniel stepped forward onto the sands. The arena was colossal. Towering walls of black metal rose high above him, lined with seats packed with alien spectators. In the VIP box, the Council of Elders observed the event with unreadable expressions. Hovering cameras floated in the air, capturing every movement. The ground beneath his boots was solid stone, covered with a fine layer of rust-colored dust. A deep, synthetic voice boomed across the arena, presenting the challenger, Captain Daniel Cross of Earth. The crowd erupted. Some cheered in admiration of human bravery. Most laughed, whistled, and jeered. In the stands, alien commentators placed bets, predicting Daniel's defeat within the first 5 minutes. Daniel took a slow breath and scanned the arena. He needed to stay calm. Ralphar would expect a nervous opponent, but Daniel wasn't afraid. Not anymore. The scar on his arm flared again. His vision shifted slightly. He saw subtle energy currents rippling along the walls. The gravity fields were uneven, deliberately altered. They're cheating. The realization hit like ice water. The council had tampered with the battlefield to favor Ralphar. Daniel's pulse quickened, but he forced himself to stay still. He couldn't show his shock. Across the arena, another gate rumbled open. From the shadows stepped Ralphar. The Zalkar champion was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, with dark blue scales and ridges of bone along his arms and back. His crimson armor glimmered under the arena lights. 2 curved blades hung from his hips, humming faintly with lethal energy. His eyes, glowing yellow, locked onto Daniel. The crowd went wild, chanting his name, worshipping their undefeated champion. Ralphar raised one clawed hand. The crowd fell silent. He pointed at Daniel and spoke, his voice amplified by hidden speakers. "Human, you come here with hollow pride. Do you truly believe you can defeat me?" Daniel tilted his head, forcing a small smile. "If I didn't, I wouldn't be here." The crowd roared with laughter. Ralphar's eyes narrowed. "When you fall," Ralphar growled, "Earth will remember this day as the moment they learned their place." Daniel's smile didn't waver. "We already know our place," he said softly. "Right here, in the fight." The crowd's laughter faded into an uneasy murmur. Ralphar's muscles tensed. He hadn't expected defiance. "The battle begins." A metallic gong sounded from above. The ground trembled. Ralphar charged, his steps cracking the stone. His speed was terrifying. He crossed the distance in seconds, swinging one massive fist toward Daniel's chest. Daniel sidestepped at the last moment. The punch smashed into the ground, leaving a crater. Dust exploded into the air. Daniel spun, using the momentum to deliver a sharp kick to Ralphar's ribs. The impact was solid, but the Zalkar barely flinched. Ralphar swung his elbow backward. Daniel ducked. The scar on his arm flared again, and for a split second, he saw the next move before it happened. A sweeping leg strike. He jumped, avoiding it by inches. The crowd gasped. Ralphar's eyes narrowed. The human moved like no opponent he had faced before. His attacks were unpredictable, his reactions almost instinctive. The champion shifted tactics, drawing one of his energy blades. The crimson weapon crackled to life, vibrating at an impossible frequency. Daniel's pulse quickened. The rules prohibited energy weapons until later rounds, but the council wouldn't intervene. They wanted him dead. Ralphar lunged, slashing downward. Daniel rolled away, feeling the blade's heat scorch the air beside him. He rose to his feet just as Ralphar hurled the weapon like a spear. The scar pulsed again. Time seemed to slow. Daniel twisted sideways. The energy blade whizzed past his ear, searing a line across his helmet. The crowd gasped again. The whisper of the past. Daniel crouched, heart racing, his vision blurred. The scar on his arm burned hotter than ever. Suddenly, the arena vanished from his sight. He stood in darkness. In front of him stood a figure, a tall, robed figure with glowing eyes. "Who are you?" Daniel whispered. "We are the Forgotten Guardians," the figure replied. "The first to awaken the human spirit. You are our last echo." "Why now?" "Because the enemy knows what you are becoming. They fear it. Use your mind, not your strength. The sands hide the key." The vision shattered. The arena returned. Ralphar was charging again. Daniel's eyes scanned the battlefield. The sands hide the key. His gaze fixed on faint patterns in the dust. Disrupted energy fields. The altered gravity. He sprinted toward one of the distorted spots, ducking under Ralphar's blade. The moment he stepped on the spot, the gravity reversed. He shot into the air. The crowd gasped. Daniel twisted mid-flight, drawing his sidearm. He fired 3 precise shots into a nearby pillar. The energy beams hit a hidden node. The entire gravity grid collapsed. Ralphar stumbled, losing his balance. Daniel landed lightly, now in control. The tables had turned. The secret revealed. The galaxy washed in silence. Billions of eyes, across countless worlds, were fixed on a single moment. Captain Daniel Cross stood with his weapon aimed at Ralphar, the undefeated Zalkar champion, who now knelt on the shifting sands. The impossible had happened. The gravity field, rigged to ensure Daniel's defeat, had collapsed. The human had outsmarted the technology designed to crush him. Ralphar, known for his overwhelming power, looked vulnerable for the first time. The whispers began. How did the human do that? Did you see him move? It was like he predicted the attacks. What if humans aren't as weak as we thought? The Council of Elders, seated high above the arena, leaned forward. Their plan had been simple. Daniel Cross was supposed to fall within minutes. Now, he stood poised for victory. Daniel's decision. The scar on Daniel's arm throbbed. The whisper returned, cold and insistent. Strike now. End it. His finger hovered over the trigger of his energy pistol. One shot would finish Ralphar. One shot would prove humanity's strength to the galaxy. But something felt wrong. Daniel's mind raced. Ralphar was dangerous, yes, a brute who believed in strength alone. But the voice urging him to kill didn't feel like the ancient guidance that helped him survive earlier. This whisper carried something darker. He lowered his weapon. The arena gasped. He hesitated. Came the shocked cry from a Zalkar broadcaster. The human is weak. Another commentator jeered. Daniel ignored the noise. He extended his left hand toward Ralphar. Get up, he said. This fight isn't over. Ralphar's rage. Ralphar's breath came in heavy bursts. His pride burned hotter than the suns above Keltharus Prime. No one had ever shown him mercy before. This human, this fragile ape, dared to humiliate him in front of the galaxy. He bared his teeth and accepted Daniel's hand. As he rose, his eyes glowed with fury. You should have finished me, he snarled. Daniel gave a faint nod. Maybe, but that's not what humans do. Ralphar's fists clenched. Mercy makes you weak. Daniel's gaze was steady. We'll see. The battle resumes. A new signal sounded. The battle recommenced. Ralphar moved like a storm unleashed. His body blurred as he lunged with both fists raised. Daniel reacted instantly, stepping sideways. The scar on his arm flared again, feeding him glimpses of the next moves. He countered with sharp, precise strikes, attacking joints, ribs, and weak points with uncanny accuracy. The crowd, once mocking, fell silent. The human was holding his ground against the galaxy's greatest warrior. But Daniel felt the strain. His muscles ached. The energy guiding his movements came at a price. His vision blurred at the edges. Every pulse of the scar brought pain. How long can I keep this up? The council's intervention. High above, the Council of Elders grew restless. The human was supposed to be an example of weakness. Instead, he was becoming a symbol of resilience. Initiate Protocol Red, the council leader ordered. Across the arena, hidden machinery hummed to life. The sands beneath Daniel's feet shifted, turning into a magnetic trap. His boots stuck instantly. He strained, but the magnetic pull was too strong. Ralphar saw his chance. He drew his second energy blade and charged. Daniel's instincts screamed danger. The scar pulsed so hard that his vision whited out. The whisper returned, louder, more distinct. "Now, call us." "Call who?" Daniel gasped through clenched teeth. "The Forgotten Guardians. Call us." The awakening. Ralfar's blade came down with a roar. In that instant, Daniel slammed his left hand onto the scar and shouted, "Help me." The world exploded with light. A shockwave blasted outward from Daniel's body. The magnetic field shattered. Ralfar was hurled backward, crashing into the arena wall. The crowd screamed. Cameras short-circuited. When the light faded, Daniel stood in the center of the arena. His scar now glowed like molten gold, extending across his arm and chest. His eyes shimmered with the same golden hue. Energy crackled in the air around him. The Guardian's voice. Daniel heard footsteps behind him. He spun around and froze. Standing there was the figure from his visions, tall, robed in silver, with eyes that burned like twin suns. The figure's voice resonated in Daniel's mind and throughout the arena. "We are the Forgotten Guardians. We protected humanity once, long ago. Now, we return." The crowd stared in shock. The Council of Elders rose to their feet, faces pale with fear. Ralfar groaned as he stood again. He saw the Guardian and roared, "You cannot interfere. This is our battle." The Guardian's gaze shifted to the Zalkar champion. "Your kind broke the rules when you tampered with the arena. Now you face the consequence." The final clash. Daniel felt the Guardian's energy surge through him. His body felt light, strong, and sharp. Ralfar charged again, blades flashing. Daniel moved with inhuman speed, dodging every strike with ease. Then he saw it, Ralfar's weak spot. The scar beneath his left shoulder plate. The Guardian whispered the words Daniel needed. He feinted right, then struck hard with his palm against the weak spot. Energy surged through the blow. Ralfar roared in pain, the armor shattering. He collapsed, gasping. Daniel stood over him, chest heaving. The moment of truth. The crowd waited. Would Daniel deliver the final blow? The scar on his arm pulsed again. The whisper of the Guardian returned. "Finish him. It is the only way." Daniel clenched his fists. He remembered his promise, to protect humanity, not become like the monsters they feared. He shook his head. "No, we don't win by becoming them." The Guardian's form flickered. "You defy us." Daniel's voice was firm. "We didn't survive by being ruthless. We survived by being human. If you don't understand that, leave." There was a long pause. Then the Guardian smiled faintly. "You have passed the test, Daniel Cross. Humanity is ready." The figure vanished. The scar faded to a dull mark. The dark truth. The universe held its breath. The broadcast of the grand combat had spread beyond the core worlds, beyond the trade routes, and even beyond the borders of known space. In every corner of the galaxy, sentient beings sat frozen, watching a human named Daniel Cross defy impossible odds. He had done more than survive. He had outsmarted the rigged gravity traps. He had stood against the Zalkar champion without fear. And then came the impossible. The explosion of energy, the appearance of the Guardian, and the defeat of Ralfar without delivering a killing blow. The arena stood silent long after Daniel left the sands. The image of his glowing scar and the ancient figure who called themselves the Forgotten Guardian haunted every viewer. Humanity had been underestimated. Now the galaxy was afraid. The aftermath. Daniel sat on a medical bed inside the arena's underground complex. His body ached from the fight. The scar on his arm, once brightly glowing, had dimmed to a faint golden shimmer. It no longer pulsed with heat. Sarah Miles stood beside him, her face pale. "You shouldn't be sitting here," she whispered. "The council is furious. They're calling what happened an anomaly." Daniel smirked bitterly. "Anomaly. That's a nice word for we rigged the game and lost." They've ordered an investigation, and the Zalkar have declared you an enemy of their empire." "Of course they did," Daniel said, running a hand through his damp hair. "They can't admit a human beat their champion." Sarah hesitated. "It's not just them. Other species are concerned. They're asking how you did it." Daniel rubbed the scar on his arm. "I wish I knew." The council's secret chamber, high above the arena, in a hidden chamber of black stone and golden light, the council of elders gathered. The broadcast feeds had been cut, the recording seized, and the analysts summoned, yet none could explain what had happened. The leader of the council, a gray-skinned being named Elindra Vos, tapped her clawed fingers against the table. "The guardian we saw. Did anyone recognize the energy signature?" The chief scientist, Professor Krellick, shifted uncomfortably. "The signature matches the ancient archives. Pre-collapse artifacts. From Earth's forgotten past." "Impossible," Elindra hissed. "The guardians vanished millennia ago. Apparently, they left something behind," Krellick said. "Something that's awakened in this human. And if the guardian's influence returns..." Vos' eyes darkened. "The old legends said the guardians protected humans to stop something. Do we know what?" "No records remain," Krellick admitted. "Just one phrase recovered from the encrypted archives." "Read it." Krellick swallowed and spoke. "Beware the architects of the void." Silence fell. The council exchanged worried glances. "Fine cross," Vos ordered. "Before the architects do." Daniel's escape. The medical bay door hissed open, and a technician rushed in. His eyes were wide with panic. "They're coming." Sarah grabbed Daniel's arm. "Who?" "Council security. They're here to detain Captain Cross." Daniel cursed and tried to stand. Pain shot through his legs. Sarah quickly wrapped his arm over her shoulder. "Move," she said. They rushed out the back entrance. Sirens blared behind them. The corridors twisted through the arena's underbelly. From ahead, heavy footsteps echoed. Sarah pointed toward a maintenance hatch. "There." They slid through the narrow passage just as armored guards appeared, scanning the area with energy rifles. The hatch led into a dark service tunnel. Daniel leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "Why are they after me?" Sarah shook her head. Whatever that thing was in the arena, they want it. The scar on Daniel's arm suddenly pulsed again. A whisper filled the tunnel. "They're close. Hide your presence." Daniel's heart raced. He placed his hand over the scar. The glow faded. The footsteps passed overhead. The hidden message. They emerged into the dim city streets of Caltharus Prime. The sky above swirled with storm clouds. Giant holoscreens replayed the match. But every time the Guardian appeared, the footage glitched. The council was hiding the truth. Daniel's communicator buzzed. He answered cautiously. "Who is this?" A voice crackled through. "Go to Dock 17. Now. Trust no one." "Who are you?" Daniel demanded. The call ended. Sarah frowned. "That's probably a trap." Daniel nodded. "Yeah. But if they wanted me dead, they'd have done it already." They hailed an autocab and headed for Dock 17. Dock 17. The stranger. The docking bay was nearly empty. A single cloaked figure stood by a small, unmarked transport. The figure turned. Beneath the hood was an older woman with pale, weathered skin and sharp eyes. "You're Daniel Cross," she said. "Who are you?" "Name's Mira. I'm with the Free Archivists. We study ancient galactic history, and right now, you're living history." Daniel tensed. The Guardians. What were they? "Protectors," Mira said, "but not just for humans. They defended the younger species from something ancient and hungry. The architects of the void." Sarah shivered. The council mentioned them. Mira nodded grimly. The architects were builders. They shaped stars, carved planets. But then they turned to something darker. They fed on civilizations, devoured life energy to fuel their technology. Daniel's scar pulsed. The whisper returned. They return. Prepare. How do we stop them? Daniel asked. Mira opened the transport's cargo hold. Inside lay a metal sphere etched with glowing patterns. This is an ancient guardian artifact. It activated when you awakened. It's key to your DNA now. The sphere floated toward Daniel and stopped inches from his scar. The patterns shifted, forming words. Anchor point confirmed. Defensive protocol initiated. The floor vibrated. Outside, sirens wailed. Mira cursed. They found us. The Council won't let you leave this planet alive. The chase. They boarded the transport. Engines roared to life. Security drones swarmed the docking bay, opening fire. The ship shook as blasts slammed into the hull. Daniel gripped the controls. The scar pulsed again. A translucent interface appeared, showing the enemy positions. He adjusted the flight path instinctively. The transport twisted through the attack, escaping into the upper atmosphere. Sarah gaped. How did you do that? Daniel flexed his arm. I didn't. The Guardian tech is helping. Mira nodded. And it'll get stronger. The architects have felt your awakening. You're the signal that tells them humanity is ready to be harvested. Daniel's blood ran cold. How long until they come? Mira's expression was grim. They're already on their way. The final strike. The stars had never looked so empty. Daniel Cross sat in the cockpit of the stolen transport, watching the endless void stretch before him. Earth lay at the far edge of the glowing star map projected from the ancient sphere. Its familiar shape, a blue marble of life, shimmered with faint golden lines that pulsed in sync with the scar on his arm. The whisper returned, clearer than ever. Return to the cradle. The architects are awakening. Mira adjusted the ship's navigation, her sharp eyes scanning the data feed. Earth's planetary defenses have picked up strange gravitational signatures near Jupiter, she said. Distortions that match pre-collapse anomalies. Daniel's jaw tightened. The architects. Looks like it, Mira said. And if they're here already, we're running out of time. Sarah Miles sat beside him, her face pale but determined. Why Earth? She asked softly. Why not attack a weaker colony? Earth, Mira said grimly, was always special. The Guardians called it the cradle of resonance. It was where they planted the seed of humanity's survival. And now the architects are coming to harvest it. The architects return. The transport dropped out of hyperspace near Jupiter. The gas giant swirled beneath them, its massive storms raging across the surface. The planet's metallic moon, Europa, drifted nearby. Daniel's scar flared with blinding intensity. The sphere projected a new image, a colossal black structure rising from Europa's icy crust. The object was angular, covered in shifting patterns that resembled endless spirals. Tendrils of energy reached from its core, extending toward Earth like invisible roots. Mira's hands trembled. That's an architect nexus. Sarah frowned. What's it doing? Mira leaned closer, harvesting Earth's life energy. The longer it stays, the weaker Earth's biosphere becomes, if it completes the process. Daniel didn't need her to finish. If the architects succeeded, Earth would become a dead world. The Guardian's warning. Daniel gripped the sphere. How do we stop it? The sphere responded immediately, its surface glowing brighter. The Nexus core must be severed. Strike the Heartstone. Heartstone? Daniel asked. Mira's face went pale. The Nexus core is protected by a crystalline structure. It's nearly indestructible. Daniel stared at the image. The scar on his arm burned. The whisper returned. Strength alone will fail. Adapt. Overcome. We have to get down there, Daniel said. The descent to Europa. The transport spiraled toward Europa's surface. The icy crust cracked and groaned beneath the ship's landing gear. In the distance, the Nexus loomed, a towering pyramid of black stone, crowned with swirling crimson light. As they disembarked, The sphere floated beside Daniel, projecting a faint energy shield to counteract the intense cold. The air crackled with an unnatural hum. Sarah scanned the surroundings. This place feels wrong. Mira nodded. Architect tech distorts reality. It bends physical laws. Stay close. Daniel took a step forward. The scar on his arm pulsed, and the ground beneath him shifted. The ice seemed to breathe, shuddering beneath his weight. Suddenly, shadows rose from the ice. Humanoid shapes, black and featureless, emerged with jerky, unnatural movements. Their eyes glowed faintly red. Intruders detected, they intoned in unison. Daniel drew his weapon. The shadow guards advanced without sound. The battle for the core. The first shadow leaped at Daniel. He fired, but the energy bolt passed through it. The creature's arm extended unnaturally, slamming into his chest. He flew backward, landing hard against the ice. Sarah opened fire beside him, but her shots had the same effect. The shadows passed through the energy beams like mist. Daniel coughed and staggered to his feet. The scar pulsed again. The whisper returned. Project Intent. Shake the field. He didn't understand, but he tried. He focused on his arm, willing the energy outward. The golden light extended, forming the shimmering blade in his hand. The next shadow lunged. Daniel slashed downward. The glowing blade met the shadow's arm with a crackling hiss. The creature screamed and disintegrated. Sarah stared. How? No idea, Daniel panted. But it works. The remaining shadows hesitated. Then they merged into one towering figure with elongated limbs and a distorted, shifting face. Its voice crackled through the thin air. You are the key-bearer. The architects have awaited your arrival. Daniel tightened his grip on the energy blade. Yeah. Well, tell them I'm here to evict them. The shadow lunged. Daniel dodged and drove the glowing sword into its chest. The creature screeched and dissolved into the ice. The ground trembled. The nexus groaned as the crimson light atop the pyramid intensified. The Heartstone Chamber. Mira pointed toward a fissure at the base of the nexus. The core chamber should be in there. They sprinted across the unstable ice. The fissure widened into a cavern entrance. Inside, the walls pulsed like veins. The air hummed with ancient predatory power. At the center of the chamber stood the Heartstone, a massive crystal pulsing with dark red light. Tendrils of energy extended from it, stretching toward Earth in the distant sky. Daniel approached the stone. The sphere floated beside him and projected words in glowing text. Core integrity at 87%. Estimated planetary collapse in 4 hours. How do we destroy it? Daniel demanded. The sphere shifted, displaying complex geometric patterns. Resonant disruption required. Scar energy interface necessary. Daniel swallowed hard. You mean me? Wait, Sarah said, stepping forward. What happens if you interface with it? The sphere responded. Unknown. Probability of survival. 12%. Sarah's eyes widened. Daniel, you can't. He exhaled slowly. If we don't, Earth dies. Mira touched his shoulder. The Guardians chose you for this moment, but the architects won't let you do it without a fight. As if on cue, the walls of the chamber shuddered. From the shadows, a colossal figure emerged, a humanoid shape of liquid black metal with glowing red veins. Its face was smooth except for 2 blazing eyes. We are the architects, the figure intoned. This world is ours to harvest. Surrender, key-bearer. Daniel stepped forward, raising his glowing blade. Come take it. The final battle. The architect struck first, extending a massive arm into a sharp spear. Daniel dodged, slashing at the appendage. The blade bit deep, sending waves of dark energy crackling through the chamber. The architect howled and retaliated with a concussive shockwave. Daniel flew across the chamber, landing hard against the crystal wall. Sarah and Mira opened fire, drawing the architect's attention. Daniel staggered to his feet. The scar on his arm flared with excruciating heat. The whisper returned. Focus. Merge with the sphere. He grabbed the floating sphere with both hands. The scar and the sphere's patterns synchronized, merging into a single glowing network across his body. Golden energy surged through him. His body felt like it was dissolving into light. He raised his hand toward the heartstone. The architect roared and lunged. Daniel extended his arm. A beam of golden energy shot from his palm, piercing the creature's chest. The architect shrieked as cracks spread through its form. The beam struck the heartstone next. The crystal's red glow fractured into chaotic patterns. The architect's voice turned from rage to fear. No, if you destroy the core, you release the seal. Daniel gritted his teeth. Good. The energy intensified. The heartstone shattered. The architect disintegrated with a deafening screech. The chamber collapsed around them. The aftermath. The transport lifted off just as Europa's surface cracked open, swallowing the Nexus into a fiery abyss. From orbit, they watched as the tendrils of energy receded from Earth. The sky over the blue planet cleared. The Nexus was gone. Daniel sat in the co-pilot's seat, body trembling. The scar on his arm had turned black. Sarah touched his shoulder. You did it. Earth's safe. Mira, however, looked grim. Maybe, but the architect said something. You released the seal. What did we just unleash? The scar throbbed once more. The whisper returned, faint and ominous. The architects were only the beginning. Daniel stared at Earth below, dread settling in his chest. The aftermath heard across the stars. The universe doesn't forget. The battle on Europa had ended, but its echoes traveled far beyond the Sol system, across star clusters and trading hubs. In ancient halls and shadowed council chambers, the story spread. A human had defeated an architect nexus. The architects were no longer myths or cautionary tales. They were real. Worse, they had tried to harvest Earth and failed. And the one who stopped them was Captain Daniel Cross, a man touched by the guardians of old. The galaxy was afraid. And when fear spreads, it changes the balance of power forever. Earth orbit. The debrief. The transport docked at Earth's orbital defense station, where military officials and scientists swarmed the landing bay. Daniel stepped out first, his legs unsteady. The scar on his arm had turned from gold to black, branching across his veins like lightning frozen in stone. The guardian sphere, now dormant, floated beside him. Sarah and Mira followed closely. Admiral Carson met them at the docking ramp. His uniform was crisp, but his eyes showed the weight of sleepless nights. Behind him stood members of Earth's Unified Council. Captain Cross, Carson said, extending a hand. Daniel shook it firmly. The Admiral's grip was tight, his eyes flicking to the scar. You've stirred up quite the storm. Daniel exhaled. I didn't start it. I just stopped it, for now. Come with me, Carson said. The council needs answers. The council room. The chamber was circular, with floor-to-ceiling holograms displaying Earth from orbit. Council members from across the human colonies sat in silence as Daniel, Sarah, and Mira entered. The council leader, Director Elena Vargas, stood. Her hair was silver, and her expression unreadable. Captain Cross, she began. The entire galaxy saw what happened on Europa. You destroyed the Nexus and stopped the architects from draining Earth. For that, we thank you. Daniel inclined his head, just doing what had to be done. But the threat isn't over, Vargas continued. Our deep space sensors picked up something, a signal. After you destroyed the Nexus, a transmission was sent toward the galactic core. Daniel felt his stomach drop. The architects calling for reinforcements. Possibly, Vargas said, or something worse. The scar on Daniel's arm throbbed in agreement. The architect's legacy. Mira placed the guardian sphere on the central table. It flickered weakly. This sphere is ancient, she said. It's connected to whatever power the Guardians left behind, and now it's tethered to Daniel. When he interfaced with the Heartstone, he didn't just destroy the Nexus, he activated a beacon. A beacon for what? Carson asked. Mira tapped the sphere. The projection shifted into a star map. Lines connected hundreds of systems, forming a web. At the center of the web was Earth, glowing faintly. Sarah leaned closer. Wait, these lines, they aren't star routes. No, Mira said. They're ley lines, energy pathways that the Guardians established thousands of years ago to protect Earth. The Nexus tried to tap into that network to drain Earth's life energy. Then we stopped it, Daniel said. For now, Mira replied. But when the Nexus collapsed, the signal it sent was a distress call. The architects weren't alone. They served something older. The forgotten enemy. The sphere crackled, projecting the shadowy figure, tall, thin, with elongated limbs and hollow eyes. Its form was indistinct, like smoke trying to become solid. The room went cold. We are the architects, the figure said, voice hollow. The harvest failed, but the void remains patient. The cradle is not the goal. It is the key. The hologram shifted to show Earth. Tendrils of darkness snaked from the planet toward the galactic core. Mira's eyes widened. They never wanted Earth just for its life force. They needed it to unlock something buried in the galactic core. Sarah's breath caught. What's in the core? The hologram zoomed into the core, a swirling maelstrom of distorted spacetime. Ancient symbols appeared, forming a single word. Nithurus. Daniel's scar burned at the sight of the word. What is Nithurus? Mira swallowed hard. The ancient records mention Nithurus as the heart of the architect's power, a prison built by the Guardians. Daniel's scar pulsed more violently. The whisper returned, faint but clear. The lock is broken. The sleeper stirs. The sleeper. Daniel turned to Mira. The architects were just servants. What were they trying to release? Mira hesitated. The sleeper. A being the Guardians imprisoned at the core of the galaxy. They called it the Void Mind. A creature capable of consuming entire civilizations. Why Earth? Sarah asked. Why start with us? Daniel's voice was hollow. Because we were the ones who defeated them before. The global broadcast. The Council voted unanimously to broadcast the truth. Across Earth, Mars, Luna, and the distant colonies, the message was clear. The architects had returned. Earth had survived. But the war was far from over. Humans reacted with shock, disbelief, and fear. But in the days that followed, fear gave way to something stronger. Resolve. The same stubborn resilience that once saw them through world wars and global disasters now united them against a new enemy. Recruitment centers overflowed. Defense systems were upgraded, and Daniel Cross became an unwilling symbol, a warrior touched by ancient power. The ghost signal. 3 weeks later, Earth's deep space array picked up a faint, repeating signal from the galactic core. Nithurus awakens. The signal was accompanied by tremors across Earth's ley lines. The Guardian sphere reactivated on its own. It displayed new coordinates, directing Daniel to a distant, uncharted planet at the edge of the galactic core. The whisper returned, clearer than ever. Go now, Keybearer. The sleeper stirs. The war for the soul of the galaxy has begun. Final scene. The departure. Daniel stood in the hangar of Earth's orbital command. The Guardian sphere floated beside him, glowing faintly. Sarah adjusted her gear, checking the energy rifles and tactical suits. Mira oversaw the loading of supplies into their new warship, the Dawnstar. Daniel flexed his arm. The scar was now a solid line of black energy, etched into his skin like a brand. He didn't know what awaited them at the galactic core, but he knew humanity wouldn't face it on their knees. Sarah stepped beside him. Ready? Daniel stared out at the stars. No, he admitted, but let's go anyway. The Dawn Star powered up and vanished into the void.